What's going on, guys? I get a huge number of comments with every video I post listing 4 characters and asking me if those 4 characters make a good team. My answer is usually that those characters are all good and that they can work together. Even though there's something I may personally change due to my playstyle preferences, there are a lot of ways to form a team in this game that are viable. That being said, I want to cover some things in this video that I consider when I am forming teams. I will also discuss 4-star characters that are regulars in my team rotations and the importance of catering teams to the content you're going up against. A large majority of the best teams in the game are supported by 4-star characters that most people have, and having these characters built up will make forming teams much easier. There are a lot of considerations when putting a team together, such as energy generation, elemental resonance, reactions, and roles, and having a fundamental understanding of these things will help you put together the best teams with the units that you have access to. The first point I want to make is that in the open world in Genshin, you can get away with almost any team, assuming all the characters are not the same element. Forming teams becomes much more important when fighting bosses, trying to clear domains quickly and efficiently, and most importantly, in the Abyss where you're fighting the clock. Therefore, team building should be a dynamic thing, and you should not just have a specific team that you use to clear any content. First, let's discuss enemy resistance and shields, because this is one of the most important considerations when putting together a team. All enemies have different resistances to physical and elemental damage. Some enemies have the ability to put up shields, and some enemies are completely immune to certain elemental damage. Let's discuss a few examples. I posted links in the description of this video that I found useful. Looking at this table compiled by Phrase Ray to Phi, we can get most of the information that we need. We see that slimes and hypostases are completely immune to elemental damage from their own element type. Whopper flowers have no immunity, but do have a higher elemental damage resistance to their own element than to other elements. And therefore, to do the most damage most quickly, you want to have characters in your party of a different element type. Other enemies, like hilichurls, have the same resistance to all elements, making team building much more flexible. We also need to consider breaking shields when figuring out which characters to equip. Some types of enemies, like Fatui skirmishers, can be injured through their shields, but take decreased damage while their shield is up, while other enemies, like Abyss mages, are immune to damage until their shield is removed. This graphic shows the best elements to take down various types of shields. It is important to note that character level and actual damage are not factored into how quickly a shield is removed. Therefore, a level 1 Barbara is equally as effective as a level 90 Mona against a Pyro Abyss mage shield. Knowing this information will allow you to form teams that can actually defeat the enemies you are fighting and can do so in the most efficient manner possible. Without the right elements present, clearing Abyss stages with 3 stars is nearly impossible. There are 2 other content-based considerations in my opinion that affect team building, including crowd control and shields. Spiral Abyss Floor 11 Chamber 2 is the one content in the game at the moment where crowd control is almost essential. This can be useful for clearing any Abyss floor with a large number of enemies quicker, but the ley line protection challenges in the Abyss are almost impossible without a crowd control strategy. For this floor, an Animo support unit such as Venti, Sucrose, or Traveler, Zhongli with his Petrify reaction, or a freeze comp such as Ganyu and Mona are all viable options. Finally, the new Abyss Floor 12 requires you to have tanky units, and the best way to accomplish this is with shields. This floor can certainly be cleared without shields, but doing so quickly requires being able to tank damage and avoid interruption while dishing it back. I realize this is a lot of detail, but these are the things I think about most when putting a team together, as well as when figuring out which characters to invest resources into. With Spiral Abyss being something that is always changing, having characters available that can fill all of these roles is vital. So let's spend a little bit of time talking about team roles and what a well-balanced team will typically look like. Let's group these units into 3 categories. These will be primary damage dealers or main DPS, off-field damage dealers or sub-DPS, and utility characters, which are made up of crowd control, shields, heals, and general team buffing. Your primary damage dealer should be a character that can do significant damage constantly while on the field. Because these characters typically do all their damage while they're on the field, this is their best role. Razor, Klee, and Zhao are all good examples of characters who do no off-field damage, and therefore cannot fit into a different role. You can fit whoever you like into this role, and I encourage it, but it does not mean that it's the best fit for this character. Some characters like Beidou and Ganyu can actually fit into a couple of roles because they do a lot of damage while on the field, but also can leave their elemental burst active when switching. Your off-field damage unit is typically a reaction support that complements your main DPS. Sing Cho is a great example of this in a Vaporize comp with Diluc or the future waifu Hu Tao, as he can do the majority of his damage with his ult without being on the field, and because it is elemental damage, your main damage dealer who is on the field while this is occurring can cause additional damage through elemental reactions. Although characters like Mona and Zhongli do not do extended damage off the field, Their time spent on the field to pop their elemental burst is small, and they can fit into this role really well. The third major category is going to be utility characters. These characters can be healers, shielders, crowd control enablers, or provide general team buffing. My favorite utility characters fill more than one role at the same time, making them overall easier units to invest safely into. A balanced team has only one main DPS. You may have one or two sub DPS units and one or two utility units depending on what you specifically need. You should avoid doubling up on units who fill the same role unless there's a good reason to do so, or you just don't have the right characters leveled up yet. Let's talk about characters that I think are universally worth investing in. These characters can basically fit into any team, although you may pick one over another depending on the content you're going up against. I have most of these characters fully geared and they're constants in my team rotations. When new main DPS units are released in the future and I incorporate them into my roster, I already have solid support units for them ready. This list includes characters that are amazing at one thing, but also others that I really like because they fill multiple roles well. Bennett does damage, breaks shields, heals at a high rate, and provides an attack boost to your team. He works in basically every team comp, assuming you didn't C6 him, and you cannot go wrong investing in this character. I've spoken about Diona a lot on my channel. She's one of the best cryo supports in the game and provides healing and shields. Fischl does amazing off-field damage and generates energy particles while not on the field. Xingqiu has amazing off-field damage, high hydro application, and provides heals and shields. Zhongli provides shields, crowd control, and resistance shred. Sucrose and Venti both provide crowd control and can wear the 4-piece Veritas and Venerer set, which decreases enemies' resistance to elemental damage. And Jean is probably the best healer in the game, is a solid burst damage dealer, and her element allows her to work in any team. While not every one of these characters is best in every single team comp, you can find a use for them in most teams that you'll form in the future. Next, let's touch on energy generation. I have a whole video on the topic of energy recharge that you can watch if you want to learn more, as this can't be neglected when talking about how to put together various team comps. Units like Noelle cannot generate their own energy, and therefore, teaming her with another Geo unit that can create Geo energy particles is critical for ult uptime. Chi-Chi and Barbara also do not generate their own energy. When every other character performs their elemental skill, energy particles of that element type are generated, and characters with the matching element get more energy than characters without the matching element. Therefore, if your main DPS has a high energy cost, it can be advisable to run a support unit with the same element as your main DPS to maximize uptime on their burst. Finally, you should understand your party's elemental burst costs and elemental skill cooldowns. If all of your party members have a burst cost of 60 plus, you're going to have a difficult time getting off consistently high damage numbers throughout a fight. And if you have a support unit with an energy cost of 80, you might want to run a second member of that same element to help their energy generation. Elemental resonance is another reason for running two units of the same element. In my opinion, the best resonances are currently Pyro for the 25% increase in attack to your entire party, Cryo for the 15% crit rate increase of the entire party, and Geo for the 15% shield strength increase, 15% damage increase while shielded, and 20% Geo resistance shred. Personally, this is one of the last things I go for, as I prefer my team to synergize well together over forcing a team of two members of the same element just to get some additional benefits. The one exception I find is a Geo team comp. If you're running a Geo main DPS, the new Geo resonance buff is almost impossible to pass up. Also, seeing that there are more Geo support units in the game than main DPS units, this is one of the easier elemental resonances for most players to accommodate. For the most part, you should be building a team around specific elemental reactions. In most cases, I'd pick a single reaction and stick with that one reaction, although it can make sense to build a team around two different ones. Exceptions to forming a team around reactions are really only for a Geo team comp where you're making use of the Geo resonance and the fact that Geo reactions do not add to damage output, or with the release of Xiao, a team centered around an Anemo main DPS. In both of these cases, the remaining party members should provide off-field damage or other utility because reactions aren't needed here. The two strongest elemental reactions in the game are still Melt and Vaporize, which provide either a 1.5 or 2 times damage increase, but other reactions are absolutely viable and necessary depending on the main DPS you're running. Therefore, if your main DPS is either Pyro, Hydro, or Cryo, this reaction usually takes priority, although there are exceptions. The exception is usually a Cryo DPS, in which a freeze comp may provide more value depending on the content you're taking on. Freeze comps are more specific and fall off hard when fighting Hydro and Cryo enemies with shields or elemental resistance. If you're running a Razor or a physical Kaching comp, adding a Cryo party member for Superconduct is almost always a must, as your physical damage is greatly enhanced by this reaction. If your main DPS is Electro, such as Beto, the best reaction to build around is almost always Electro Charge, due to the chain AoE nature of the reaction. This also works very well in reverse, with Child as a main DPS and Beto as a support. Building teams around units that can equip certain artifact sets is also a key to forming successful teams. Some of the best artifact sets in the game for support characters are the 4-piece Veritas and Fenrir, 4-piece Noblesse Oblige, 4-piece Archaic Petra, and 4-piece Retracing Bolide. The 4-piece Veritas and set can be placed on Sucrose, Venti, Jean, or the Animo Traveler, which everyone has access to. This set makes these amazing crowd control units even better for a main DPS that primarily does elemental damage by reducing enemy resistance to elements they swirl by 40%. The 4-piece Noblesse Oblige set is almost a must in any party, since any character can wear this set. This is best on supports that have a high burst uptime, and whose burst is utilized for reactions with your main DPS, or in Bennett's case, buffing your party's attack. Good characters for this set include Xingqiu, Mona, Bennett, and potentially Diona. The 4-piece Archaic Petra is another strong support set in comps using a Geo support by giving a 35% elemental damage boost to your party when the Geo character picks up a shard from a crystallization reaction of the matching element. Finally, I'm throwing Retracing Bolide in the mix, not because you should place this on your support units, but because it is a very strong set that can replace Gladiator or Wanderer's Troop, much harder to farm artifact sets, in a shield comp, giving 35% increased normal and charge attack damage to your main DPS. That's all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys found this video helpful and informative. If you did, please consider subscribing down below. I put out a Genshin Impact video just like this one every single week. See you guys for the next video. Peace.